My name is Ken Clark. I'm an assistant professor here at Queen's University, and one of the experiments I work on is the PICO experiment. The PICO experiment started as the merger of two different collaborations. There was the PICASSO collaboration, which was largely the Canadian effort, and the COO collaboration. Both had been using superheated fluids, but they'd been using them in slightly different ways. So what we have here is one of the original PICASSO detectors. And so the way that PICASSO worked, we had our superheated fluid, but we basically dispersed little droplets of it all throughout this gel. And so what would happen is the dark matter particle would come in, would interact in the superheated fluid, which would boil, but the gel matrix would essentially keep that little droplet boiled there. So we could leave this, and we'd leave this for 8 to 10 hours, and we just count the number of times we heard a little popping of the little droplets actually boiling. And that's what these sensors mounted here are. They're piezoelectric sensors that we mount there in order to hear what's going on the inside. Now, the COO collaboration functions slightly differently. They had a large container, which they filled with their superheated liquid. So the same thing happened. The dark matter particle would come in, it would interact, and it would boil, but then they'd have to immediately recompress, or else the whole thing would boil away. When we kind of had this merger, we had these two collaborations working on very similar technologies. We decided that the COO style, the actual full container of superheated liquid, was the better way to do it. So the PICO experiment does that. Basically, we have one large container full of the superheated fluid that we use. We use cameras to look and see the interactions. That's actually what's going on in these videos here. As these interactions happen, we get these little areas which are boiling and creating these bubbles inside the detector. What's happened recently is that the PICO 40 detector, we've actually filled it with our superheated fluid. So we've changed the orientation of the jar. We've changed the functioning of the detector significantly since PICO 60. So PICO 60 had our jar full of superheated fluid, and we had water on the top. And when we needed to recompress, when we needed to catch an event after it boiled, we'd push on the water and compress it and put it all back in a liquid state. What we've done is we've flipped it over for PICO 40. Now we have a jar, we have another jar on the inside that we use to push on it. So we think this is a much cleaner way to do it. We think this gives us a better active area inside, and we think it's just going to be a much better functioning system. And so recently we filled the whole thing, which was a huge milestone for the PICO collaboration.